subject, let's actually get to our last topic, which
Yeah.
is mediocre quarterback play in the NFL, and we can even tie salaries into that if it comes back to it. Purpose.
Yeah, y'all are talking about salaries, but I was gonna actually use some advanced stats, and just I was looking at QBR. I respect QBR to a certain extent, and just like this season so far, I'm not talking forever football, but just 2016. This season so far, the majority of quarterbacks in the league QBR is below 67. There's only one quarterback with a QBR over 90, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo, who didn't play last week. There's 5 undefeated teams in the NFL, and besides Jimmy Garoppolo, each quarterback for those undefeated teams are below 66 QBR, which just goes to say that the quarterbacks aren't playing as well as we expect them to play this year, and the defense is kind of winning so far this season when it comes to offense and defensive play against each other. And it's actually a trend that's going on in the NFL this season, is that quarterbacks are not living up to what you expect. I mean, Fitzpatrick just threw 6 interceptions this last Sunday.
We expected that.
I bet you Gino expected it.
Man, y'all leave Fitzmagic alone, man.
Do you believe in magic?
I'll leave him alone when he's doing what we doing right now. When he's talking about more games than he playing.
Damn.
I like to say that technically Peyton Manning was a $100 million quarterback when they won. He had a $99.2 million contract. Just saying.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Wow.
Technically.
Just throwing out more of my QBR advanced stats. Cam Newton, the reigning MVP, has a QBR of 52.3 right now. And Drew Brees has a 52.7 over there with New Orleans. Just throwing those stats out there. You know, advanced stats are all the rage.
Is there a definitive quarterback above replacement? Is there something like that?
It's not scaled to replace. It's not scaled to replacement level. No, it's not.
There's something called points added.
And they points at it because they're so terrible.
So essentially, because what y'all are doing, y'all are mocking my advanced stats. That we can't do that.
I'm using them. What are you talking about? I'm looking at total QBR right here, and according to total QBR, there's Carson Wentz at a 67 down. There's only 10 other players higher than a 66 QBR in the NFL right now. I'm just saying.
But remember,
only one of them is in the 90s.
QBR is scaled to 100, so it's not 158.3, and 60 is actually up. So a 60 is actually above average.
So
yeah, 60 is decent. Yeah, 60 is decent. 70
so being
is
a little bit more than half. A little bit more than halfway to 100 is good, but catching 7 out of 10 passes is bad. Okay, I get advanced stats are confusing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even remotely the same thing. So thank you for
creating a strong. Honestly not, because it's like a -5 and an 8.
So thank you. So thank you for
we know that on a scale of 0 to 100, only 10 quarterbacks in the NFL have anything over a 66. And we're saying that some of these guys at 66 are good. That 60 is the cutoff. That you need to be a 60 or above to be decent QBR, which is an advanced stat.
First of all, we have to look at, it's 3 games. So small sample size applies. Like we
now
can't,
we're using
like,
sample size. Now sample size matters.
We always use sample size. I mean, you know what? You know.
Oh man.
As far as the mediocre quarterbacks, and I guess we appreciate you trying to use QBR now.
I really was trying to like use the thing though.
Nah, man, leave that to the professionals.
Who's a professional?
Stats. Obviously, I mean, -5.
You an expert? He an expert?
No. I'm definitely not. I'm definitely not an expert.
When to use the advanced stats. I don't know when to use them because they're so advanced. You know, like I don't know when to use advanced stats because they're advanced.
I mean, they're pretty easy.
That makes sense.
I would just say if you want to use regular quarterback rating, just use total QBR instead.
That's what
I feel
I'm
like
using
that's easier for.
I am using total QBR.
No, I'm just saying in general, not you, but I encourage people to use total QBR in replacement of quarterback rating because that's really what it was designed to do.
Well, that's what I'm using.
That's because those people didn't understand quarterback rating.
Yeah, I didn't understand that either.
Well, it was a stupid stat. Because
QBR is not stupid.
No, it's not. Quarterback rating double counted completions. Like, why would you double count completions and it doesn't count sacks or rushing or rushing impact? So no, that was dumb. As far as the
because it's quarterback rating, not the quarterback's rushing rating. It's their passer rating.
Well, I mean,
but at the same time, if you pass for 225 yards and you rush for 79, you've had a pretty good game. If you just passed for 250, who had a better game as a quarterback?
It depends. How many attempts did it take? What's your yards per attempt? That's what I mean. QBR adds that context and passer rating does not. That's what I mean. If it take you 40 attempts to get to 250, no. But quarterback rating isn't going to always pick that stuff up, especially if you get sacked 4 times. Quarterback rating doesn't pick that stuff up, but QBR will.
I think QBR is really accurate.
Sometimes the sacks you can't control.
But if sometimes you can, but I've come to believe that sacks are a quarterback stat. I fully believe that
because QBR told you to.
No, because I watch football. So,
but it's not on quarterback. It's not on the quarterback all the time. It's between both.
I completely disagree.
It takes both.
I completely disagree. And the example that I used last year was Brock and Peyton. Peyton's sack rate was 4.5. Brock was 9.1 behind the same offensive line.
So you're talking about a guy who's in his 15th, 16th season and a guy in his second season and never played before? That's what you're comparing it to?
Well, Peyton was in the second season and had a sack rate of like 4. So, again, the experience doesn't really matter. If a quarterback...
It does, because if you're looking at guys who... If you have a bad offensive line and a guy is getting through immediately, look at David Carr when he got crushed for a record amount of sacks. That's his fault because the line couldn't hold up. He got crushed under that.
I'm not
but
saying
you just said you just said it was on the quarterback. You just said sacks are on the quarterback.
I'm not speaking about David Carr specifically. However, David Carr was notorious for holding the ball forever. I'm positive most of those sacks were on him.
Wasn't nobody open. He couldn't see nobody because he was on his back. What are you gonna do?
He was actually notorious for throwing it away like Romo because he didn't want to get hit.
He was notorious for peeling himself off the ground.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I couldn't pass it when I was on the ground all the time.
Like I said, it's a 50-50 to me because some of it is on the quarterback holding the ball too long, and some of it is on the lineman for not blocking.
So let me ask you guys,
it can't be all on one.
Let me ask you guys, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer total QBR or quarterback passer rating?
Total
if
QBR.
You want to statistically choose. I like QBR. I'm with AJ.
QBR.
I prefer total QB. I want my stats to have all the context possible. Like I prefer not to have anything left out. You know what I mean?
But it does leave out.
Using QBR, can we just say that right now the NFL quarterbacks are playing piss poor?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that.
Not saying there aren't
but
good
we can
players.
say Melvin Gordon. We can say Melvin Gordon sucks already, but we can't say these quarterbacks with bad QBRs because of the sample size.
I'm saying there's only 10 quarterbacks with a QBR over 66. That I personally, in my opinion, I believe that is a testament that these quarterbacks are getting beat by the defense as a whole. Now, am I wrong in saying that, or can you agree with that?
I wonder, though, what that would look like compared to last year, because 10, to me, doesn't sound that surprising. Well, like, I'm not terribly surprised.
Well, the funny thing about the internet is we can actually look this stuff up.
Well, I said the same thing last year, though. It started out slow last year, and I said, well, these quarterbacks aren't looking that good, and then it picked up as the season progressed. Now, I don't know if that's because of injuries or they've gotten game film, because the first couple weeks, the first quarter of the season in general is pretty much a toss up because
Listen
you're still trying to frame things out.
Listen to these stats. Guess how many quarterbacks were over 67 at the end of last year? I want you to guess.
15.
Guess. 9.
Well, first of all,
Matt
here's
Ryan
the problem.
was the ninth at 67.2.
Here's the issue that I have with that, though, P, is because that's an arbitrary number. Why are you picking 67 as opposed to 60, which the stat itself says means that that's above average quarterback play?
I would prefer it to be 70, and I actually was just using the top 10.
Okay. Well,
So
70.
The top 10 cutoff was at 67. That's why the top 10, Jameis Winston is 10th at a 69, but then the next person is a 66. So that's the line I was using.
Okay, so
last year the top 10 was a 65.9.
Yes, that's correct.
But the top guy last year was a 78. The top guy so far this year is a 91 because of small sample size.
But you have to understand the best season by QBR ever is Brady's 2007 season. So you have to remember the best seasons don't get to 90. So
it was at 88.2. And the all-time best seasons, the top ratings have pretty much everybody over 70. There's nobody.
But that's what I mean. 70. So having a 60 isn't bad at all, especially when you scale.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's mediocre. How about that? I'm saying it's average. You don't think it's average? You think it's good?
I would say it's slightly above average. I would say it's slightly above average.
I think a slightly above average is mediocre. I would think that would fall in the mediocre range.
Yeah, I mean, Chris is saying a step above average.
How is slightly above average mediocre? I thought mediocre.
What do you consider mediocre?
Yeah, I'm just saying that's what I think mediocre is.
Okay, I don't think mediocre
is bad.
I consider mediocre below average.
Me too.
I don't know how. And again, QBR.
Well, if that's the case, where the disconnect on what mediocre is.
Okay,
so let's do it this way. Okay, what do you think? So if there's, let's put the line at 60. You put the line at 60, you have exactly half the league is above 60 and half the league is below 60. 16 and 16. So what you're saying is that it's okay that half the league is above and half the league is below.
I'm not putting much stock into.
That makes it pretty much the middle, which is average, which I would consider mediocre. But
it's
you would
been
consider
3 games, and Tom Brady hasn't played yet. I'm not the biggest Tom Brady fan, but I would think that he would have above a 60. So
yeah, he would replace Jimmy Garoppolo, who leads the league with a 91.9.
Okay.
So that doesn't change anything. It just replaces a guy.
I don't think Drew and Cam Newton are going to be below 60 when the season's over. I also don't necessarily think Kirk Cousins.
I don't know about Drew.
I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be above it. I don't think Trevor Siemian is going to be above it.
Well, for reference, last year there were 19 who had a 60 or above. 19, and Brock was at a 59.9. So
and they won the Super Bowl.
That's the point of reference.
What I'm saying is that these quarterbacks, like how Brock had a 59.9 last year with the Broncos, I'm saying that these quarterbacks are not having to play as good to either win games or even lose games because defenses are kind of in charge of the games. I feel like the defenses are better than quarterback play right now. And that's why I feel like the quarterbacks are being very mediocre because it's a passing league, yet these quarterbacks are not playing as well as what we expect to as a total QBR standpoint. Or as well as I expect them to. Maybe I have high expectations from an NFL quarterback.
I mean,
making hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, QBR is definitely one stat to look at. Just looking at different stats, I mean, you definitely get a different picture painted. I definitely think because again, QBR is one of my favorite stats. So I do think that that's a good one to look at because that really factors everything but strength of opponent, which they actually said they're coming up with an adjustment for that. Hopefully, it'll be put in which factors in the opponent that you play, because I feel like that matters. But again, I think it's too early. I think it's too early to really speak on just for this one season. I think at this point you still go by the QB's past draft. I mean, not past draft, past performance. I mean, if you're a rookie, obviously you have to go by this.
Well, even using the past performance, like the last 2 or 3 years, do y'all feel that quarterbacks have been playing at a very high level in the NFL? Has it not been a trend that people are saying, we're not getting good quarterbacks in the NFL anymore, and we're not getting good draft prospects, etc., and they're blaming the quarterbacks they already have in the NFL?
I mean,
does that not
just
play into the
they're getting
mediocre?
yards, but that's it. If you look at if we're going off QBR, if you look at QBR, other than last year, it's typically been the top 15 have been over 60 QBR over the last years. And then the stats, if you look at the stats, the quarterbacks haven't been playing that great. They've been putting up yards. But, I mean, if you factor in the rule changes and not being able to touch receivers and defensive receivers and all of this, I mean, you expect the numbers to go up. But what we're seeing is as the numbers go up, the efficiency isn't going up. The actual skill and talent isn't going up. Just the numbers are going up offensively. And I think what it's doing is, because we see this, it always is a balancing act. You know, you go more running, you get the 4-6 defense out there, and then people have to figure it out. You go to the spread offense, and people figure it out. What we're seeing now, it's been about 5 years since the changes, and now defensive coordinators are figuring out how to stop these spread. How do we play within these new rules where we can't touch the receivers? So let's set up different defenses. Let's set up spies. Let's set up zone blitzes differently. And that's what we're seeing now. He had to adjust. And we said this when the rule changes came through. We're like, okay, right now you're going to see this huge spike. But as time progresses, these defensive coordinators are smart enough to make adjustments. And that's what we're seeing now. They made the adjustments, so it's bringing everything else back to earth and back to the mean than what it used to be.
I wonder if you compared quarterback rating and the performances statistically, yardage-wise, whatever, from now to before the rule changes 5, 10, 15 years ago, what it would look like. Because I think Lentz is probably on to something. We may have come back to earth. We may be back at a point where you're not going to see a season. What was it? 5 guys that were right at or above 5,000 yards a couple years ago? 4?
That was 2011, and I was going to mention that because that was actually the year the quarterback, Matt Stafford, Breeze, and I don't even think A-Rod won the MVP that year, but I think those three, I think it was one more quarterback, had over 5,000 yards that year. So that was the year that quarterbacks played at a really high level as far as throwing for yardage. But ever since then, it's been kind of going down. I don't know what was so special about the year 2011. I know my boy didn't change.
The rules had just changed.
Okay. Well, then, that would explain it. But even in 2011, quarterbacks weren't necessarily more efficient. Like, A-Rod had an 85.5 QBR, Breeze was 84.3, but they were the only two that were above 80. Brady was at 76. Matt Schaub was at 76. So I don't necessarily think it was even more efficient. There were 13 quarterbacks who were above 60. Cam was at a 59.7. Matt Moore was at a 58.7. So I just think it was really the top guys, and I don't really consider Stafford a top guy. But there was a lot of yardage thrown that year. I would have to look and see how much of that was yak and how much of that was yards in the air. But it may have been a huge yak season that year, with people adjusting to the new rules on defense or whatever. So they decided to run a lot of the pick plays and things like that to get them open, throw more short passes because passes have gotten.
AJT, let me ask you this. Take QBR out the window. Just eyeball test. How do you feel about the quarterbacks? Like, do you feel like the NFL has quality quarterback situation right now?
Well, that's a different question. So these are the games that I've been watching. I've watched Blake Bortles. So no, I would absolutely say that he's not. I watched Cam opening night. I watched Brock. He looked terrible. Jacoby Brissett, he was okay passing. He was better running. Yeah, I mean, so far, no. I would say just with the eye test, but stats pick up things that the eyes miss. But just from my eye test and just who I personally watched, I would probably say that no, it doesn't look like the stats are saying. The stats are painting a better picture than what I actually see.
What about you, Alan?
It goes back and forth. I think that the veteran guys that you see around the league, I'm a focus on Drew Brees because I started on that earlier. He's not as good as he's been. I think more than anything you've seen, and this may not be completely on him, but a lot more batted down passes, a lot of passes going short. I think he struggled. Obviously, Tom Brady's gone, Peyton Manning's gone. So some of your top, big name quarterbacks out there aren't there. Matt Ryan's been really interesting. I think a lot of his issues right now are from a play calling perspective. I don't think he fits well with Kyle Shanahan. But you look around the league, there's a lot of young guys who aren't what you thought they were going to be. Blake Bortles looks like shit.
Yeah.
I'm
still rooting for
the Raiders. I've never been a Mariota fan. So there's a lot of young guys who aren't getting it done, like you were saying, P. And then some of the veterans that you expected to take steps up have not. So I've been really surprised by some of the guys who have played relatively well. I'm not a big Matt Stafford fan myself, but he seems to be doing all right. But I think he's the biggest name really that's come out and done better than you expected. Flacco's kind of been middle of the road to me. Aaron Rodgers has looked tough. I haven't seen enough of Sam Bradford to make a decision, but looking around the league right now, I haven't seen a quarterback that has been super impressive. I think, like you said, defenses and special teams are winning a lot of games right now.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing as well. I tend to watch all the games, and then I'll look at the stats afterwards. Mm-hmm. But it really hasn't been anyone that really stand out. I mean, if you look at just I know Turner hates it, but I'm going to look at the raw stats right now, just the yards. Kirk Cousins is second with 989, and I don't think anyone thinks he's played really well. Drew Brees has Drew Brees has 1,000 yards already, and he hasn't looked really good, but he's had to put up so many points because his defense is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Stafford, looking at the list of Matt Stafford has looked decent. He's looked a lot better than I thought he would, considering he lost Megatron and how he used to just force it to him. I think losing Megatron has helped him develop more because he doesn't have that security blanket. He has to spread it out more now. Plus, he has Marvin Jones over there who's killing it. So I think that's helped him. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but if we got to look at all the quarterbacks, he has looked the best to me, but nobody has looked just great. Like, there's been games where guys have looked like Big Ben. I mean, he looked great that second week when he was torching them. But, I mean, there hasn't been anyone who's been consistent.
They beat the entire hell out of him this past week.
Yeah.
Isn't that saying something, though? Like, if you were to say, like, okay, who would be an average to above average quarterback in the NFL in the last 5 or 6 years, and I say Matt Stafford, people be like, yeah, he's decent because he can throw it a lot, but he's not like a great quarterback. And now this season, we're looking at him, and he's been the most consistent. Is that not telling you where the look is at quarterback? Is that it's kind of all dropping down towards the average look at quarterback? That makes me think mediocre. I know that you guys said that if it's above average, it's not mediocre. But to me, that makes me feel mediocre because I feel like if these starting NFL quarterbacks aren't playing to a higher level, then I think anything below that, unless they're just playing shitty, is that it's just average. And average to me is mediocre. But I mean, I can understand if you disagree with that, but I feel like Matt Stafford is the ideal person to say, hey, he's one of the best in the NFL right now. NFL is in trouble because this is mediocre.
And I kind of agree with what you're coming with, but at the same time, I don't want to hold his past deficiencies against him as much. Because what if he looks the most consistent because he finally took that next step. That step that everyone's been waiting for Jay Cutler to take. He finally took that step. And he's actually a good quarterback now. I don't want to say, well, he's mediocre just because the rest of his career he's been mediocre.
6 weeks from now, we'll have more games to look at.
Yeah,
and we can say more things. But right now, I mean, we're only 3 weeks into the season. We have to look at okay, we have to look at their past body of work and what they're doing now. And he hasn't done enough this year to make me change my mind about him being a mediocre quarterback.
Well, the thing with Matt Stafford was that since week 8 of last year, that's when Jim Bob Cooter, which is a ridiculous name, since he took over as offensive coordinator, that's when Matt Stafford took his step forward. So there's definitely a touchstone point where we can say that's where Matt Stafford had legit improved. A lot of people thought he would do much worse this year without Calvin Johnson. Obviously, Marvin Jones has been good. I've always liked him, and now he's on my fantasy team, killing it for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But yeah, I mean, that has really been a touch point to say week 8 of last year. I know that's arbitrary, but that's when Jim Bob Cooter started taking over the play calling duties from zombie Jim Caldwell. And he's really been a much better quarterback. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. So it's possible that that was a marriage that needed to happen when Stafford got drafted early. Either way, Stafford's playing well right now. We can't really knock him for that. I don't want to hold his past against him. He's 7th in total QBR. Again, I hate his mechanics, but they look better. He still has a strong arm. So,
a couple of other guys who've been putting up decent numbers but aren't in like the top 10 is Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz. They've played decently well considering everything around them, but it's fallen apart, except Wentz. His defense has been incredible. The Eagles look tough, but he hasn't made those mistakes, and he's actually been one of the most consistent. And, of course, you got Aaron Rodgers, who just doesn't turn the ball over, but he's been a real detriment to his team to this point. So it's been a lot of, I think people are looking at the numbers and like, okay, well, they're putting up numbers, so they got to be good, which isn't necessarily the fact because, I mean, you got these guys, majority of the people have passed over 100 times already, and it's only been 3 games. I mean, they're throwing it at a ridiculous rate right now.
Well, one thing to remember when looking at the stats and just overall in general, like you have to figure that some stats, including QBR, don't give the credit or give very little credit for quarterbacks who get a lot of yards, get a lot of yak, which is why Carson Wentz himself isn't in the top 10 because it just from looking, most of his yards are via yards after catch, which is fine.
But you expect it.
Yeah, of course. Actually, 55% of his total yards are yak. So that would explain why it looks good to us, but the stats are going to give the credit to the wide receiver as they should for the yak. I know y'all,
but it's still good. But it's still good. It's still his yards. Like, there's still yards that are going to be attributed to him. It's yak, but he's making the right decision. He's not turning the ball over. He's making the right decision.
I'm not knocking his decision making.
I'm saying, but you're saying it looks good, but it's really not because of the yak. Yak is something. I
didn't say that it wasn't good. That's not what I said. What I'm saying is some stats, and again, I want to make this very clear. I'm not against yak. But if we're evaluating quarterbacks, which is what we're doing, he's fortunate right now to play in an offense that can help him with his yak. In other words, he has receivers that are getting yards after the catch. Yes, his throws are leading that, but also his receivers are breaking tackles as well. So it's not just him. He's playing well. I'm not taking anything away from him, but it's been proven statistically. Brian Burke, one of the pioneer statisticians in football, who's now employed by ESPN, who actually modified the QBR formula. QBR is more of a wide receiver stat than a quarterback stat. Until something shows me different, that's what I'm going with. So again, it looks good. He's playing well, but that's why QBR looks different than how it actually looks to us.
Let me ask you this: Advanced Stat Pro (AJT). Carson Wentz QBR is a 66.
Yes.
Is he below average, average, above average so far this year? To you, I'm just asking your opinion. Yeah.
Considering he's well above average, especially considering he's a rookie.
Okay.
Especially considering he's a rookie.
So what was that whole soliloquy you just gave us about his stats? He doesn't really look as good as his stats say.
I don't think. No, I say he looks good. Like, to me, when I've seen him, he looks great. The stats don't paint that same picture. So the stats and the eyes don't match for me in this case.
Yeah,
other than his yak, what stats don't look great for him?
Well, that's a big
yardage perspective. He hasn't put up a lot of yards over the last.
But that's the entire point, because he wouldn't have the yardage that he has without the yak. That's my entire point. Again, looking at him just with my eyes, independent of stats, he looks great, especially considering that he's a rookie. However, with the stats and the fact that the stats again show that wide receiver is a yak stat, that's why the stats don't paint the picture that he has like a 70 QBR, 75, and only a 66 because most of his yards are yak. That's all.
I don't think he should have a 75. It looks accurate to what I've seen from him.
AJT, in your eyes, he got a 70 plus QBR, but statistically he doesn't. But on the look test, you think that he's above 70 QBR, but on the stats test is lower because of the system he's in. Because of
the yak, yes. I'm not saying he's playing. I'm not saying that he's playing bad at all. I'm just saying I understand the difference between the eyes and the stats. That's all I'm saying. I understand the difference in this case because most of his yards are yak. I get it. But if you look at other stats that don't really factor in yak or don't factor it in as much, those stats are going to look much better. So again, it just really depends on it just really depends on, you know, what you
like what? Because all I'm looking at is his quarterback percentage, his yards and yards. I don't think he's looked great. I think he's looked good, and his QBR matches what I think. So I don't think he's been as great as people are saying. Mm-hmm. I think he's just looked good. I mean, he's had a defense that's controlled everything.
I'll give you an example. Like we were just talking about Football Outsiders. They have him right now fifth in total value. I'm not going to use DR and DVOA. DR is total value, and he's fourth in value per play. Those stats don't really account for yak as much, so those are going to paint a different picture.
I don't know. With my new understanding of the advanced stats of total QBR, with the scale that you gave us earlier, that if 60 is good, he's a 66, then he's playing about to what he looks like on the field stat-wise.
But again, in my personal evaluation, I'm throwing in the fact that he's a rookie. That's why I say he looks better. That's why I said, considering he's a rookie, he looks great. Because rookies don't generally just come in and not turn the ball over like he is. He's helped by a system that he doesn't really have to make a lot of.
Unless you're
actually, they have been lately. As of late, that has been happening. That's been one of the big things that rookies haven't been turning the ball over as much.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the stats, that's why it was such a big thing when Luck came in and he had 23 interceptions when all the other quarterbacks didn't have as many interceptions as him. Quarterbacks aren't turning it over as much when they first come in.
But Luck was in a completely different system, and they were asking him to throw down the field a lot. They're not asking Wentz to do that.
Still.
So again, 23. Yeah. I mean, 23 turnovers is a lot, and Luck, as we see, has a propensity to turn the ball over.
Numbers, man.
I don't disagree. Yeah, I mean, he definitely has a propensity to turn the ball over. I'm just saying they're in different systems. One, if you throw the ball in the air a lot, that generally comes with more turnovers. Wentz just doesn't have to do that yet. And then, like y'all said, his defense is helping him out. So